Imagine being locked in a pitch-black room. No windows, no exits. The walls are shaking. The screaming outside is unbearable. And then it stops. All of it. Just silence and water. You're not alone. There are 8 of you, and you won't see daylight for 370 days. This isn't a horror film. This is the Bible. And nobody talks about what it actually felt like inside that ark. We all know the story. Noah, the rainbow, the animals, 2 by 2. It's on nursery murals. It's on children's lunchboxes. Sweet, colorful, safe. But here's what they leave out. 370 days. That's how long Noah's family was sealed inside that vessel. Not 40 days. That was just the rain. The actual confinement, from the moment God shut the door to the moment they walked out onto dry ground, was over a year. 1 year. No sunlight. No news. No escape. No idea if they'd survive. Genesis 7 and 8 give us the timeline, quietly tucked in the numbers. And when you do the math, it's devastating. The cute version, it doesn't prepare you for this. So today, we're going inside. We're going to feel what those 8 people felt. The fear, the darkness, the grief, the silence, the faith tested beyond anything most humans have ever endured. Stay with me, because by the end, this story is going to mean something completely different to you.
Genesis 7:16, one of the most quietly terrifying lines in all of Scripture. And the Lord shut him in. Not Noah, not his sons. God himself sealed the door. And that changes everything. Think about what that moment looked like. Neighbors, acquaintances, maybe former friends. People who'd mocked Noah for decades, suddenly pounding on the outside of that hull, screaming, begging. And Noah couldn't open it, even if he'd wanted to. God had shut it.
Could they hear them? Almost certainly yes. Wood, even thick gopher wood, doesn't block out human screaming, especially not when the rain begins. Genesis says the fountains of the great deep burst open. The sky cracked. This wasn't a drizzle. It was a global catastrophe, tearing the earth apart. 40 days, 40 nights, the pounding of the rain, the groaning of the hull, the rising water lifting an enormous wooden vessel into the unknown, and the sounds from outside fading, slowly, then gone. Think about that. The silence after. That specific silence. The one that means everyone is gone. 8 people, 4 married couples, sealing themselves inside their grief. That door didn't just shut out the flood. It shut in everything they'd ever known. Let's be honest about what the inside of that ark looked like. Genesis 6:16 mentions a single window, a tsohar, roughly 18 inches of opening near the roofline. That's it. 3 decks, hundreds of stalls, thousands of animals, and one small strip of diffused light at the very top. The lower decks? Pitch black, or close to it. Oil lamps, maybe. Torches, possibly. But the smoke, the animals, the ventilation challenges alone would be staggering. and for 370 days.
The smell. We don't talk about the smell. Thousands of animals confined for over a year. The waste, the disease risk, the rot, the wet fur, the sounds, roaring, shrieking, howling, bleating, all day, all night, never stopping. No silence, ever, except the silence of knowing the world outside no longer existed. 8 people. That's it. No community, no visitors, no break from each other, no break from the animals, no break from the fear.
The rocking never stopped. Day 1, day 30, day 150. Still rocking, still dark, still enclosed. Imagine the headaches, the seasickness, the muscle fatigue from constant bracing on a heaving floor. This was survival. Raw, exhausting, daily. And somehow, they had to keep going.
This is where most retellings go quiet, but we can't. By week 2, the shock has worn off. By week 6, the routines are crushing. By month 3, what do you do with the doubt? Because here's the thing about Noah's family. They were human. They had emotions. They had limits. And the Bible never promises that faith removes fear. It promises that faith survives it.
Picture Shem's wife, lying awake on deck 2, listening to the rain that stopped weeks ago, but the water is still rising. And she wonders, did we misunderstand? Did we get this wrong? Is God still out there? Is he watching? Does he remember us? Genesis 8:1 answers that question in a way that should shake you. But God remembered Noah. That word, remembered, it implies a gap. It implies waiting. It implies that from Noah's perspective, there were days, maybe weeks, maybe months, when the silence felt like abandonment.
Imagine the conversations, the arguments maybe, the grief, raw, complicated grief for the world they'd lost. Not just strangers, their extended family, childhood friends, the town they grew up in. Every familiar smell, every favorite place, every memory attached to a landscape, gone, underwater, forever. And they couldn't grieve publicly. They had to keep moving, keep feeding, keep functioning. Cabin fever is a clinical reality. Isolation breaks people. 8 individuals in an enclosed, dark, smelly, constantly moving space for over a year? That's not a camping trip. That's a psychological crucible. Who led worship when the fear was loudest? Who broke down first? And who held them? Who snapped at a spouse and immediately felt the weight of having no space, no escape, no perspective? Noah was 600 years old. His sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth, carried their own fears. And their wives carried the loneliest burden of all, the knowledge that they were the only women left, that the entire future of humanity rested on them. That's not a minor spiritual footnote. That's an impossible weight. And yet, they endured. Not because it was easy, because it wasn't. Not because they never doubted, because doubt
doesn't disqualify faith. It refines it. This is what the children's version skips. The spiritual battle isn't won in the moment of obedience. It's won in the 370 days after, when you've already obeyed and you're in the middle of the consequence, and it still feels like it might not work out. That is the real miracle of the ark. Not the boat, the belief. Sustained, in the dark, for over a year. So how did they do it? Scripture doesn't give us a journal, but it gives us clues, and reason gives us the rest. The animals were calm. Think about that. Thousands of wild animals, no predator attacks recorded, no mass hysteria. Genesis doesn't explain it, but something was supernaturally different inside that vessel. God didn't just preserve the animals, He restrained them. That alone would have required daily, visible evidence that God was present and active. Prayer, almost certainly constant, structured, desperate, real. The kind of prayer that isn't polished or performance-ready. It's the kind you pray at 3 a.m. when the hull is groaning and you haven't seen the sun in 4 months. Family unity. 8 people choosing every single day to face this together. Not to fracture, not to collapse inward, to serve each other, to carry each other's grief. And the work. The relentless, exhausting, merciful work of caring for thousands of animals. Maybe the labor was the grace. Maybe God designed it so they were too tired to spiral, too busy to give despair a foothold. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, Genesis 8:3. The waters receded continually. Day 150. The water starts dropping. Still no land in sight. But something shifts. The motion of the vessel changes. The groaning decreases. And someone notices. Day 224. The ark rests on Ararat. They feel solid ground through the hull for the first time in months. They don't see it yet, but they feel it. And they wait. More waiting. Ravens, doves, a leaf. Hope in small increments. God was always moving, even in the silence. Genesis 8:13-18. After 370 days, God speaks. Come out of the ark. 4 words, and the door opens. What does that feel like? After 370 days of darkness, actual sunlight on your face. The smell of air that isn't recycled through animal lungs. Silence. Real silence. Not the silence of death, but the silence of a world holding its breath. But here's the thing they don't tell you about that moment. It wasn't pure joy. It couldn't have been. They stepped out onto a world that was empty. Completely. No cities, no roads, no familiar landmarks. The entire topography of the earth had been reshaped by the flood. They were, quite literally, the only people alive. That's not a celebration. That's overwhelming.
that's terrifying in a completely different way.
And then the rainbow. Genesis 9:13. God sets his bow in the clouds, not just as a promise for Noah's family, for every living creature, for all generations to come. God signs the sky. He binds himself to a covenant. And Noah builds an altar, not a house, not a shelter, an altar. First thing. Because after 370 days of not knowing, of fearing, of enduring, the first act of a man who survived the impossible was worship. That says everything. Maybe you've been in an ark of your own. God shut a door in your life. A relationship ended. A career collapsed. A dream was sealed away. And you're in the dark. You're rocking. You can't see where it's going. And the worst part? You can't leave because he shut the door. Here's what the story of Noah tells us. Sometimes God locks you in to save you. The people outside were free to do whatever they wanted, go wherever they chose. And they all died. Noah's family was confined, constrained, afraid. And they lived. Your ark might not be comfortable. It probably isn't. The smell is real. The rocking is real. The grief over what you left behind is real. But so is the covenant on the other side. God remembered Noah. He remembered him in the silence, in the waiting, in the dark. Before Noah could see any evidence that things were changing, God was already moving. He remembers you, too. The rainbow isn't just a weather phenomenon. It's a signature. It's God saying, I see you. I hear you. And I don't break my word. So if you're in the middle of your 370 days, keep feeding the animals. Keep praying in the dark. Keep your family together. Keep believing that when God shuts a door, he always opens another one. The boat was never the destination. The new world was. And you're almost there. If this hit different, if you've never thought about the ark like this before, you're going to want to be here for what's coming next. We're going deep into the stories Scripture tells between the lines, the fear, the faith, the human reality behind the ancient text. Subscribe, hit the bell, because next time, we're going somewhere you didn't expect the Bible to take you. See you there.